SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટ ના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.
Hello everyone. The topic what we are going to discuss today is Mending Wall, the poem by Robert Frost. Mending Wall, this topic comes in Sem 4 foundation paper from text Fast Track. To begin with the poem, let's as tradition begin with the poet Robert Frost. An American poet, he is highly regarded for his realistic depiction of the rural life and his command of American colloquial speech. His work frequently employed themes from early 1900s rural life in New England, using the setting to examine complex social and philosophical themes. A popular and often quoted poet, Frost was honored frequently during his lifetime, receiving 4 Pulitzer Awards. Now, to talk about Robert Frost, the picture what we can see is an old Robert Frost, and there is a reason why I've made Robert Frost an old one, not a young looking man. The reason is because he got his acclamation as a poet around when he was 40. So that is the reason why I opted for this aged Robert Frost image. American poet by birth, and he was a poet like Wordsworth, who used to write for the common man, for the Englishman. Robert Frost was also one of the poets who used to write poems on based on rural life, so that the normal people of the normal English people would definitely understand and imbibe his poem. At the same time, any another person can also understand the feel of rural life. And at the same time, because he was he used to write about New England, and thereby, but obviously there were some complex themes also, but normally his poems were comparatively very simply written, and it is very simple in to read. And to talk about this poet again, he won 4 Pulitzer Awards, and he got his name as a poet, and definitely he has many proverbs on his name. He the poems or the verse whatever he had written had converted into proverbs or phrases for year-long generation to understand and perceive. Robert Frost, what we are going to discuss is about his life, a brief, then his few famous poems name, and then the features, his special features, and then his writings, and a few selections, not in detail but yes about, and then finally we will go to the Mending Wall. To talk about his life, Robert Frost was born in California, raised in New England. His father died early, and the family life was not that easy. He was an honor student when he graduated from the high school. He entered Dartmouth College and later Harvard, but he never finished his university education. That was quite obvious, because a family who had many brothers and sisters, and at the same time father is not more, but obvious that was being a bright student, he was able enough to get into the honor, he was able enough to get into Harvard, but then he was not able to complete his university education. He began to write poetry when he was in the middle school, but he was recognized as a poet when he was nearly 40. As I said, the instinct of a poet was there in him, and he used to write poems, no doubt, right from a very early age. But then he was named as a renowned poet, or rather he became full-fledged recognized as a poet when he was at the age of 40, and he won Pulitzer Award 4 times. He was considered as the unofficial poet laureate of the nation. In 1961, he was invited to read his poem in the inauguration ceremony of President Kennedy. He was the only poet who once had such an honor. And after that, there was another Afro-American poet named Maya Angelou, who was able enough to get this kind of same honor to read her poem in front of Bill Clinton, the president. But at that point of time, he was the first among those who were given that honor to read his poem in front of the president, and that is the reason why he was always said to be the unofficial poet laureate of the nation. a few of his famous poems. There are a lot many famous poems of Robert Frost, but these are the most striking common one: the road not taken, mending walls, fire and ice, stopping by woods on a snowy evening. And I guess stopping by woods on a snowy evening is a very known poem to all, though we may not have recognized the poet, but we would be definitely remembering the lines: and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. This woods are lovely, dark and deep. This is how the poem starts, and I guess during our schoolings, maybe all might have heard this at least once, though maybe not the proper correct lyric. But this is the poem penned by Robert Frost, and in that he had given the phrase "and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep." This is now known for. I mean, this is a well-known word sentence, which comes from stopping by wood on a snowy evening. His poetic features to talk about. His poems mostly are written about nature, influence from Wordsworth and Emerson, no doubt, because we all know that Wordsworth was a true nature poet, and it is said to be that nature herself used to take the pen from his Wordsworth's hand and used to write on behalf of nature. Means that much power was there in Wordsworth, or rather we can say like on nature's behalf he used to write. That kind of nature poet was Wordsworth, and he used to believe that poetry is spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions recollected in tranquility. And Emerson also shared the same view that nature is mystic and nature is the guide and the guiding spirit, same as Wordsworth. But in a spiritual philosophical term was Emerson, he used to write in essays, and Wordsworth used to write in poems. This was a sort of inspiration for Robert Frost as well, and that is why he also used to write about nature and New England landscape. But obviously because he used to live there, and thereby he was very much into those kind of scenes, and nature was a kind of inspiration for him too, so he used to write about that landscape of New England too. He was deceptively simple style. That was one of the reason of his popularity. As I said, just one line, and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. It is having a very simple meaning. Like, you are not supposed to sleep, you are not supposed to rest for a while because you have much distance to cover. At the same time, it's a simple style, but at the same time you will see there is a deceptive meaning, that there might be many things in life that will try to grab out of your goal, grab you out from your goal. There might be many kind of many kind of temptations may come across your life, but then what you have to do is you need to remember what is your goal, and then you have to always strive to achieve that goal and not to get into that temptation. So that is also one of the kind of meaning what we get from that same line. So this is why it is being said deceptively simple style, and that is one of the reason why his poems were so popular. Symbolism shows his poem, as I said, it has deep meaning, a deep meaning related to life, deep meaning related to nature, related to philosophy, related to psychology. Each and every poem, though the content, what you see, the topic, the title, whatever you see, is very simple and very catchy, and it is very normal, life related, but at the same time it has deep, great knowledge, and that is symbolically explained for those who people, I mean, it is for both the cups. For those people who just want to read poetry for the sake of poetry, or rather just to understand, they will also enjoy Robert Frost poetry. And at the same time, those who are always trying to see penetrating words and penetrating meaning into that poem, he is the one to read again. He was likely to choose traditional forms from his poem, but the theme of his poem were mostly modern. Though he used to write in traditional form, that is in pastoral form, because he used to talk about landscapes, and landscape we know that they comes into the category of pastoral poems, which was famous with the pen of John Milton, the Puritan poet. He used to write pastoral poems and pastoral elegies. So he was also trying to choose traditional forms, but then his topics were all modern, mostly modern one, and somewhere we can say that by doing this he was trying to club traditional scheme of writing into modern themes, and to a great extent he was able enough to get success in his combination, or rather mixture, of both these themes. And in his poem, traditional poem elements and modern elements mingle together, and they are blended together in a very good manner, and that is why we get the taste of both traditional theme and at the same time about the modern topic. We will be able enough to understand and underline those differences, and we are able enough to mix that. It has got blend in such a way that we will be able enough to get the true taste of both the themes. Then, to talk about his writings, Robert Frost was the most popular American poet from 1914 to his death, and his verse, at first terrifying, later filled with more sunshine, because one again I'll have to explain that at first it was terrifying. The reason is because he, as we know earlier, that his father passed away at a very early age when Robert Frost was at a very early age. For that reason, he was not facing the good part of life. He had to suffer, or he had to witness lot many harsh sides of reality too, and that is why his poems on the initial level were a bit of terrified. But then gradually he also understood the secret of life, that life goes on and things never stay the same during any situation changes, life changes. So then later it was filled with more sunshine, and that is why it became more pleasing and appealing for anybody to read to. Robert Frost's achievements were fantastic. Why? Because his poems are New England in the setting and are characterized by the familiar speaking voice. Any person belonging to New England would be able enough to identify his voice. Any person who belongs to any rural land would be able enough to feel oneness with the kind of themes what Robert Frost used to write. So that is why his popularity got doubled, and at the same time the poems were turned into fantastic lines. The subject comes from daily life of ordinary people. As been said, his subjects were very ordinary life thing, like for example forests, for example walls, for example any root, any tree, anything can inspire, and everything can be inspired, get received by inspiring. That was the kind of style of Robert Frost. Anything and everything was tempting him to get inspired, and that is why he used to write on any normal ordinary topics, and that used to get appealed to the senses of any people, or rather the people of England especially. Frost wrote rural poetry in the pastoral tradition as a way to understand modern life. This was a kind of means to understand modern life. For that, he used the technique of using pastoral tradition and including modern themes. Again, that was to understand life better, because the differences, as been said earlier, could be blend together, like happiness and sorrow when blend together gives a good life. Likewise, the traditional themes, since the traditional conventions and the modern themes could come together, making into an understanding of a better poetry. About his language features, Frost's poetic style is highly appreciated in the country. He used simple language, a gracious style, and a traditional form of poetry. He was often deceptively simple, exploring complexity through trivialities. Trivialities means any complex thought, as been said earlier, miles to go before I sleep. That is just a very simple trivial thing that the speaker cannot wait and just gaze at the beauty of the forest, but then he has to move ahead. He has to go very far of distances, so he cannot stand and enjoy it. It's just a simple thing. It's the just trivial thing. But on the other hand, when it is been explored in the hand of Robert Frost, it gives a complex psychology also, that life's temptation should not be inherited or should not be accepted. Rather, you have to perceive for your goal, and you have to achieve it. Until and unless you achieve it, you're not supposed to relax even for a while. So this simple trivial things get into complexity. He used simples from everyday life to express profound ideas. He made his poem seem effortless by using colloquial and direct expressions and conversational rhythms. His success mainly comes from two aspects, that are, he combined traditional poem forms with American vocabulary and speech rhythms. He worked individual poems into a larger unity by representing in them a recurred persona in the image of a wise country folk. The language, whatever he used to use, was simple, and at the same time it could bring the complexity of life, it could bring the psychological aspects, and at the same time with traditional style, modern theme, all it made was a fine, great poet writing great poetry. Now we would start with the poem. What we have to, if you can see on after Mending Wall, written by Robert Frost, we can see a wall made of stones. Now we have to keep this stone wall in mind while going through the whole poem, because this wall, which is made by stone, is the theme. This is the main object on which the whole poem is written. And mending wall means repairing the wall. So but obviously we can understand that the wall which is made of stones just is not proper condition, and that is why it has to be mended. That means some of the other stones might have just got out from here or there might be small holes in between, and that has to be mended, that has to be repaired, and on that particular point is the whole point. Now imagine just a daily routine thing, a very normal aspect that any person every year, or rather any time, some things might get into repair, and on that topic we will come to know how much philosophical aspects Robert Frost is making. Now on this poem we can just understand it is just about a wall which has to be repaired, and on this aspect how, to what extent he just makes his poetry flow. Let's go to the poem. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun, and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. The work of hunter is another thing. I have come after them and made repair, where they have left no stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. I'm just going through the whole poetry, and then we will start analyzing each one by one, stanza by stanza. The cap I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill, and on a day we met to walk the line and set the wall between us once again. We keep the wall between us as we go, to teach the boulders that have fallen to each, and some are loaves and some so nearly balls. We have to use a spell to make them balance. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. We wear our fingers rough with handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to little more. There where it is, we do not need the wall. He's all pine and I'm apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his spines, I tell him. He only says, good fences make good neighbors. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in my head. Why do they make good neighbors, isn't it? Where there are cows, but here there are no cows. Before I build a wall, I would ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, and to whom I was like to give coffins. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that wants it down. I could say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I would rather he said it for himself. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top in each hand, like an old stone savage armed. He moves in darkness, as it seems to me, not of woods only and the shade of trees. He will not go beyond his father's saying, and he likes, having thought of it so well, he says again, good fences make good neighbors. That was the poem, and now we are going to analyze poem sentence by sentence, 4 or 5 sentences each. Let's begin with the first. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, that spends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gap even two can pass abreast. Now, isn't it the word something not apt? Rather, we could have said someone there is that doesn't love a wall, because it is only human beings who make walls. So it should have been something or someone. Yes, it should have been someone. But the speaker makes it purposefully into something. The reason is because so that it becomes, it's not only human beings, it can be nature or it can be anything, something supernatural or something spectaceous. It can be a kind of mystery, and that is why he uses the word something instead of someone. Something is there, something mysterious is there that doesn't love a wall, because the stone wall is made and then again it has to be repaired. Means something is there that is making the wall go down or making the wall break. Means there would be something that doesn't like a wall. and that sends the frozen ground swell under it. That means the ground swells under the water and causes the boulders, that is the dry stone walls, to collapse. It gets dry and the stone wall get collapsed, they get separated, and thereby the wall is getting broken. So maybe it is the sense of abandon and generosity versus the meaningless and pettiness of man who restricts and builds the wall, because nature never built any wall against anyone, but it is man for his selfish needs or for his own purpose makes wall against the earth, which the earth itself doesn't like, and that is why it keeps on spilling the water away it and thereby destructing the wall made by stones. And the missing boulders form gap in the wall that are big enough for two people to walk, that is the spill the upper boulders in the sun and makes gap even two can pass, means the gap is of such a level that even two people can walk through that gap. That much big distance have been made from that wall. The wall is there to separate one place from another, one section to another section, and now it has been into such a big gap that two people can walk in between. So that is why the poet says there is something mysterious that doesn't love a wall, and it is sending that water frozen from the ground so that the wall, the stones from the wall get separated, thereby making a gap from the wall for two people to pass from that. Hope I am making sense. Then the work of hunters is another thing. I have come after them and made repair where they have left no one stone on a stone, but they would have the rabbit out of hiding to please the yelping dogs. Now if you can see, the poet is saying that it's not made by the hunter dog. I'm sure. Why? Because hunter dogs make a hole in such a way that it would be just for the rabbits would be there, and the dog would just keep on scratching that stone so that the stone would just wipe out a bit more, give space a bit so that it can take the rabbit who is hiding on a small hole. So when a dog, a hunter dog rather, tries to get his prey, that is the rabbit, he would make a hole, but that hole, he knows, the poet knows, it's not this big, so it is not made by the hunter dog. And that is what he says. Sometimes he can see that hunters have broken the wall, hunters, that is hunter dogs, but the speaker respects on the other hand that nature is obvious to his attitude towards nature. I mean, it is quite obvious that it's according to the food cycle that everything has a proper balance. Something has to be eaten by something, and thereby another person has to be gotten. I mean, that is nature. So he respects that hunter dog's thing, and that is why whenever the hunter dog is making a kind of hole in that wall, he used to mend it, he used to repair it. But this hole, this gap, what is being seen is not by the hunter dog. That is what the poet is trying to explain. Again, I am giving that image a bit clearly so that we can understand this is the kind of wall that is being made, and here in between there is a gap. Now it's not clear here in this, but here there is a gap that is being made by something. If it was a hunter dog, then there would have been a very small gap, and if it was a very small gap, it would have been understood that it was by the dog hunter, and thereby there would have been no doubt in that. And now it was such a big hole, that is why it is mysterious. The gap I mean, no one has seen them made or heard them made, but at spring mending time we find them there. I let my neighbor know beyond the hill. Now the gap that he finds more interesting are those that appear mysteriously, for which they appear to be no rational cause. This adds to the sense of mystery that is introduced in line 1. As been said, something, that is why, because the gap is during the spring it is being made, and it's not of the hunter, and anytime, every year, once a while, this gap is being made, and that is why the poet is using that mysterious word something, because it's not someone, it is something. He is of no surety. And but at spring mending time we find them there. That shows that it is not once or twice, it is like every year, once a while this has been made. Means it's a regular job of the poet and his neighbor to mend this wall, to repair this wall, and that why this spring season also the same situation has happened, and therefore he has sent an information, passed down an information for his neighbor to know that the wall between his land and the neighbor's land is having a big hole, so that has to be mended, that has to be repaired. And on a day we made to walk the line and send the wall between us once again. we keep the wall between us as we go. And that is the irony. People meet once a year. He and his neighbor used to meet once a year, and that was also to repair the wall. So that is the irony in the whole thing. And on a day we meet to walk the line. We make to walk the line. Why? Because we walk line by line, so that we can make sure that each and every stone on the wall is being mended, is being repaired and kept carefully. And set the wall between us once again. That stresses the repetitive cycle man is subjected to. The seasonal shift also suggests the inevitability of the wall collapsing and having to be rebuilt on an annual basis. And this is again, as I said, it's stressing the point that every year once a while they have to meet together, and that is to mend the wall, because the stones have been moved from their exact place, and that has made a huge gap, and not that of a hunter dog's type. Hunter dog that tries to make a hole to catch the prey. It's not of that type, and that is why he's very sure this every spring happens, and this time also happens. So inevitably the wall has to be collapsed during the spring, and that is what had happened, and therefore they are going to be together to mend this wall. Repairing of the wall, sense of separation and division. This is, we keep the wall between us as we go, means we normally bid goodbye, we wish farewell, we make sure that we wish bon voyage. But on the other hand, here what happens is man is trying to meet each other, and while man gets separated, they make sure that the wall is there in proper condition between each other's land. That is what we can see. Repairing of the wall, sense of separation and division. Each keeps off to his own side of the wall, do not cross over into the other's property. To each boulders that have fallen to us. That is, each is being repeated twice in this first sentence. If you can see, to each the boulders that have fallen to each means separateness, and also the neighbor somewhat childish, the absurd attitude that if a stone is lying on my side, I will take it up and I will mend it, and if the stones are fallen on the other neighbor's side, then he will. That sounds childish, that you take from your side and I'll take from my side, and we will both mend the wall, we will both repair the wall for separating. So that is why each boulders from my side and each boulder from your side, that is the neighbor side. And some are loaves and some are so nearly balls. Loaves and molds, that loaf of bread, the shape is somewhere of that, and some stones are like loaf of bread and some stones are like balls, footballs kind of. It is circular in size. Different shapes and sizes of stones are kept together to build a wall. That is a kind of metaphor being used, and we have to use a spell to make them balance, and because it is different shapes, we have to make sure that it has been balanced well, or else by the time you just move from that side, it is going to fall again. So that is why he needs to use a spell, that is magic. He needs to use magic for that, so that different shapes balls, or rather different shape stones stand together, thereby the wall is being repaired in well condition. Stay where you are until our backs are turned. That is what they say. At least they do request the stone that you should be as where you are by at least by the time our back turns, means we mend it off, we repair it, and then by the time we reach home, at least till that time also you should be sticking to that same position. That is what they are asking to the wall, or rather to the stone. This is a kind of irony again, because human beings don't understand the value, and at the same time they are trying to, which is an animate thing, and they are trying to make the balance of inanimate object like stone. The stone is asked to be in the same position where they have kept. So that is the irony. Over here our fingers rough and handling them. Oh, just another kind of outdoor game. One on a side, it comes to a little more. Now if you see, there are two separation, just like when we play tennis, you have a net in between, and that is trying to separate another. Division and separation has to be there to play a game. So it is just like any kind of outdoor game. We are just trying to play, make a net, or rather instead of a net we are just trying to build a wall, so that we can play in any outdoor game. The narrator's attitude here is what we can say is playful. He cannot take it seriously and does not consider it important either, because there is no importance of a wall in between the lands, because we both understand, me and my neighbor do understand that we are two separate and our land is different. So the poet is not taking it seriously that the wall is to differentiate their mindset, the wall is to differentiate their land. Rather, the poet is trying to take it in another way, that it is just like a kind of division or separateness what is being made for playing any indoor game. And why he says it is a kind of playful, why he says it in a playful mindset, the reason is because there where it is, we do not need the wall. He is all pine and I am apple orchard. My apple trees will never get across and eat the cones under his pines. I tell him, he only says good friends make good neighbors. Now, why he was having a playful mindset? The reason is because he is having apple orchard and his neighbor is having pines. So no chance is there that the pine tree is going to eat the apples or the apple tree is going to disturb the pine tree. So there was no option, or there is no need of a wall in between the apple tree and the pine tree. Just because the land is different, they are making a wall in between. That is why the poet takes it in a playful mindset and he says it is just a kind of division for any outdoor game. But the reason is because of the neighbor's mindset, that he always believes that good fence makes good neighbors, and this is somewhere the negative attitude of the neighbor that is being seen in this line. And the neighbor is somewhere making sense, and he says that good friends are necessary for good neighbors, but the poet is not able to understand because he is having an apple orchard and his neighbor is having a pine orchard. So there is no kind of need of any wall, because nothing is being going to disturb just because of the wall or without the wall. Just see now the image. You can see that here I've made many apple tree examples, and here is the wall and then here is the pine tree. So there is no option of both coming or hitting each other or getting disturbed with each other, and this pine is not going to be eaten by this apple trees or apple orchard. So that is the logic what the poet tries to make. And at the same time, the last sentence what we can see, he only says, that is the neighbor only says good friends make good neighbors. That shows the negative attitude. Good social relationship cannot exist when men are separated from one another. That is what we have to understand, because we need communication for a better balanced life. Without communication, man cannot have a good healthy life, because we need communication with each other so that we can make that relationship survive, we can make things happen. But with walls, the poet sniper is having an option, that having an opinion rather, that good friends make good neighbors. That is kind of like the poet is trying to show that it's a negative aspect what the neighbor is feeling. Spring is the mischief in me, and I wonder if I could put a notion in his head, why do they make good neighbors? He wants to shake up the neighbor's attitude, see if he can suggest an alternative way or another way of looking at the wall. And at the same time, he is implying that the neighbor is an empty-headed. Why? Because if I could put a notion in his head, if I could be able to make him understand. Why? Because may not be necessary that the neighbor is ready to understand, or may not be necessary that the neighbor is ready to shackle his thought that good friends makes good neighbors. The poet wants to try hard. The poet is wondering what he can do so that he can make his neighbor feel that it's a false notion, it's of no use, he should not think like that. And he just thinks on himself, why do they make good neighbors? What is the purpose of a good neighbor when they are just to meet once a year, and that also to repair the wall? Then what are neighbors for? And just for a separation we have walls, and he says good friends make good neighbors, when there is no use and when there is no communication between both of them the year long, until and unless the stone is being broken at part and the stone wall has to be repaired. And at that point of time also he will say the stones at your side you will have to take, and stone which at my side I'll have to mend it off. And they will say stay, they will just ask the stone to stay until their backs are turned out. So why do they need good neighbors? That was the question, and that is kind of a curious question what the author wants to place in front of the neighbor, but the neighbor being a kind of empty-headed, maybe because he is not ready to understand the notion, and nor the poet is trying to make him understand about this aspect. Where there are cows, are there any cows that is going to eat up the pine tree, or are there any cows that are going to disturb the apple orchards? But here there are no cows. If at all there were some cattle, okay, we might understand that the wall is necessary so that they don't graze at some another place. They won't graze here and there. So there needed a wall. But then here there are no cows. Before I build a wall, I would ask to know. Some people are upset by the presence of the wall. Example, the speaker. He feels that he has been shut down. Any real reason? There is no real reason, as he said. It is pine and apple. There are no cattle. Then there is actually no reason to have a wall between the lands. What I was walling in or walling out, in his mind the wall has been served at some, there has no logical purpose, and it is a kind of pun what he tries to make. He is trying to ask, what am I doing? Am I walling in or am I walling out? And to whom I was like to give it offense? Something there is that doesn't love a wall. Again he is like, whom am I offending? Whom am I trying to stop? There is no logical answer for that, and thereby he repeats the very first line what he wrote in the poem. Something is there that doesn't like a wall, that wants it down, that is it wants it to be down, it wants it to be shed off. I would say elves to him, but it's not elves exactly, and I would rather he said it for himself. His true motives are starting to become clear. He wants the change of his neighbor, thinks what is the purpose of the wall. That is what he is trying to make his neighbor understand, and to which he says that there is something that is making the wall broke off, and maybe elves are fairies, small fairies, species of fairies rather, and he's saying it might be the elves are trying to break it off, the wood elves. To which the neighbor says, no, it's not like that. So somewhere the neighbor is not able to understand, but the poet is trying to put this idea in his head that there is something which tries to say, just try to understand nature, that they don't want the wall to be there, so try to understand and don't keep this wall. That's what the poet is trying to make the neighbor understand this. And at the same time, here somewhere we are able to understand that through the poem Mending Wall, the poet is trying to bring us an idea that there is no need of barriers between human beings. There is no need of any kind of walls to be kept for each other, because land is land. The land on which I walk is the same the land on which my neighbor is going to walk. It is just a bit of miles difference, but that is not going to differentiate any land. The wind, the air, the water, whatever flows is equally flowing to all the lands and all the places. So then there is no need of dividing the lands by humans for making good neighbors, for sustaining the relationship. There is no need of making a wall against, because everything in nature flows just like that. There is no kind of obstructions, or there is no kind of restrictions of anything in nature. Then why are human beings for maintaining a relationship trying to stop or trying to build walls against each other's place? And that is a futile purpose of life, or that is a futile thing to do. This is what the poet is trying to make his this is what the motive what we can find in the poem. I see him there, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top. Grasped, that is like if you can see the stone age man, this is the image what the poet feels when he sees his neighbor bringing stone. The poet is trying to explain that he can find his neighbor just looking as like the old age stone savage man who is getting stones. If you remember during old ages, like we used to rub stones to make fire, we used to carve on stones. Stone was our weapon. So now even in this today's generation, he used to wonder, he used to feel that when the neighbor is coming with a stone in his hand to mend the wall, he used to remember, he used to visualize him as the old savage armed man. That is what he says, bringing a stone grasped firmly by the top. He is taking a stone and he's holding it very firmly in his hand like an old stone savage armed. It's like has not moved from time. That shows, this line shows that the neighbor has moved, or the neighbor has not changed his mindset as the time requires, because every time changes, and as per we have to change our mindsets, we have to change our perspectives. But with the neighbor, there is nothing yet changed. He is yet in the stone age. That is what the poet refers to. He moves in darkness as it seems to me. That is what, he is still in the dark ages. That is what I could feel. Not of woods only and the shades of trees. He will not go behind his father's saying, and he likes having thought of it so well. He is still there. He is not prepared to think beyond that which he had been taught by his father. What was good enough for his father to good enough for him. That is again he says, because when he looks, he is trying to explain his neighbor, but the neighbor is not at all understanding a bit, and he feels thus that the neighbor is yet living into the stone age. He is though in light, he is though in the advanced level, he is still living in the dark ages, and he only believes to what his father had said. He will not go beyond his father. Last to third line, he will not go beyond his father saying, means whatever his father had said, he would abide by it, and whatever his father had said is good enough for him, and whatever he is doing is good enough for what has been taught by his father. So it is equal fact. Like, he is not thinking from his own brain, he is not trying to see the reality, he is not trying to accept the present life, but he is just believing, and he is just doing what his father had told him when he was young. And what he used to say is, good friends make good neighbors. And with this, again, the second repetitive line, that is, good friends make good neighbors, with this the poem gets its ending. And that marks a kind of situation that whatever things we are trying to explain to another people, not necessarily they are going to understand, and not necessarily that they are going to believe. And this is why he says, in the initial, the poet, the neighbor used to say, good friends make good neighbors, to which the poet is trying to criticize, like there is no point in bringing a wall. But on the other hand, the neighbor is not going to agree to what the poet is saying. The reason is why, because he will always believe and he will always agree to what his father used to say, and that is, good friends makes good neighbors. With this, the poem gets over. Now we will just get a briefing about the poet and the poem. Frost is a pastoral poet, poet of pastures. Pastures means land, shepherd, land, fields would be his main scenes. Whatever the settings of his poem would be a rural life, and again that would be pastures, and that is like plain, mountains and rivers, woods and gardens, groves and bowers, fruits and flowers and seeds and birds. All those things what we find in nature, in pastures, would be his theme, and that is why he is said to be a pastoral poet. They do not treat such characteristically modern subjects as the boredom implicit in sensuality. It is like, just like in sensuality, it's a mixed, you cannot get into the boredom level provided you understand it very well. The same is with this, the mixture of pastoral elements in modern theme is just a blend, as if the boredom implicit in sensuality, the consciousness of neurosis, and the feeling of damnation. This is kind of concerned, this is somewhere relation of the subject and the theme or the setting. To which Clean Brook, the critic, has said, Frost's best poetry exhibits the structure of symbolist metaphysical poetry much more clearly than does of many a modern poet. Metaphysical elements are those elements that are like images that are wide apart, and that has been connected or combined or unified to make a unified whole. Example, what we can say is the compass. If you see the compass, there is a point which would be in the center, and there would be a pencil nib which would be on the other side, and it would be the point side of the compass would be in the middle, and with the pencil you make a whole circle. And when you make the whole circle, means the round is being made, the point of the compass in the middle, and this point and the circle is being connected with each other, if you remember the compass in your geometrical box. So now the point is there, pencil section is there and we make a circle. Now this is purely geometrical, there is no comparison. But here John Donne, a poet, one of the greatest metaphysical poet, imagined or compared this compass to lovers. How? Husband and wife stays back while husband has to go here and there. They have to travel to earn a living, and there the love between a husband and wife is being related with the compass, where the wife, which is the point, the center of the point, is there itself, and the husband is going wide apart to make the circle of life join together. But overall, though there is distance, the distance can never make the center wide. Means both are getting connected. How can you feel when you see a geometric box? How can you think about it as a lover? But John Donne thought about it, and that is why he is compared to be one of the best metaphysical poet. And in this kind of technique, Cleon Brooke says that Robert Frost, with his pastoral themes and pastoral technique and modern poem, he is trying to mix it in the metaphysical relationship, because they are entirely different aspects, but he is clubbing it both together to make a unified form. And to a great extent, as per Cleon Brooke, he was a successful poet in that aspect compared to many other modern poets. In fact, Frost's poetry portrays the disintegration of values in modern life and the disillusionment of the modern man in symbolical and metaphysical terms as much as poetry of great modern poets does, because most of the poems deal with persons suffering from loneliness and frustration, regrets and disillusionment, which are known as modern disease. Now the theme here also, the wall is being mended, the wall is being cut and it has to be mended. That shows the theme of modern life. Modern life, it is like either they don't want unity, either they are lonely, either they are separated, either they have their own single mindset, they need space. These are all the modern diseases what we can find in modern man. This is the same theme in his poem, and thereby he is trying to analyze, and thus his poem has a sense of disillusionment. His poem is having the theme of loneliness. Symbolic aspects are thus coming together with this kind of themes. And he does but obviously have regret that his neighbor is not able to understand that the wall is of no use. So thus regret is also, frustration is also the theme which comes or which emerges in this poem. Mending wall, the title, it's just repairing a wall, and that also a wooden wall. In that, that's a normal fact, and in that the poet is trying to put the themes of regret, disillusionment, frustration, that are all qualities of human man, modern man rather. So that is the clubbing of clubbing technique of Robert Frost, and to which to a great extent he has succeeded too. And in Old Man's Winter Night, one of his poems, the old man is lonely, completely alienated from the society, likeness, the tiredness of the farmer due to overcoming in apple picking as a result of his yielding to sleep. And this is Old Man's Winter Night. This is again another poem by Robert Frost, and there also you will find that old man is pining for or due to overwork of apple picking. So again there you will find the same kind of aspects. For I have too much of apple picking, I am overtired of great harvest, I am myself desired. So now he was waiting for harvest, and now it is so much that he is so much tired, and he is overtired of it, and now he's like, he pines for, like, he made a mistake that he's realizing that harvest was of no much use. So this is again the kind of regret what you can find. I mean, almost all his poem you will find this kind of tinge here and there. According to J.F. Lenin, the critic, the use of pastoral technique by Frost in his poem does not mean that the poet seeks an escape from the harsh reality of modern life. He is not trying to escape, and that is very clearly written, because end of the poem also he says that the neighbor is not going to understand. Why? Because he believes whatever his father had said, and he clings to that fact that good neighbors can be preserved by good friends. So he is not going to accept it that there is no use of walls. But that doesn't mean that he is trying to pine. He is not regretting on it. He is trying to explain it, and he is trying to bring these ideas in front of the people. and he's not escaping from the harsh reality. He's facing it as just, and because he takes his childhood, he takes it as a kidding thing, as if these two things are separated because for to play some indoor games. So he's not trying to seek an escape from harsh realities of modern life. He argues that it provides him with a point of view. Yes, exactly what we can see. This is what in the poem also, it gives a clear cut his point of view. Frost uses pastoral technique only to evaluate and comment on the modern lifestyle. His pastoralism thus registers a modern against the disintegration of values in the modern society, and here he is one with great poets of the modern age like T.S. Eliot, Yeats and Hopkins. They are all the modern poets. T.S. Eliot, the modernist poet, Yeats and Hopkins, all used to give this same thing. They tried to protest against the disintegration of values in modern society. They were all trying to explain, though one get infatuated with certain aspects, but that is not going to lead the life into a happy ending. That is not, maybe a temporary happiness, but that is not going to survive long. So we have to be mingled together. We need to have a unanimous whole rather than disintegrated separated values with each other. So this is what even in his poem, in Robert Frost's poem also, we can see. Another poetic technique adopted by Frost which makes him a modern poet is his symbolism. Symbolism, again, Keats, Eliot and all had made simply superb poems using symbolism. So this is again one aspect of Robert Frost too. Robert Frost wrote a poem, The Road Not Taken. Here it symbolizes the universal problem of making a choice, of invisible barriers built up in the mind of the people which alienate them from one another mentally and emotionally. Thought they live together as a neighbor in the society. Similarly, the birch tree in Birches, I'm talking about several different poetries, symbolizes man's desire to seek escape from the hard suffering man to undergo his own world. In The Road Not Taken, it is all about the decisions or rather the plannings, the ideas that creeps up in our mind, the to be or to not to be, that doubt which comes in human mind. So that is the whole symbolic meaning. And in Birches also, it's about the man's desire to seek escape from the hard suffering of man to undergo to survive in this world. And here again it is, the wall is trying to symbolically show the division in the mindset of human being against each other. In this poem, Mending Wall, it's a metaphorical poem written in blank verse, published in 1914 by Robert Frost. The poem appears, this much was the poet and his techniques, and now we are coming to the poem. It is metaphorical poem and it is written in blank verse. It has a freestyle and it was published in 1914 by Robert Frost. The poem appeared in Frost's second collection of poetry, North of Boston. It is set in the countryside and is about one man questioning why he and his neighbor must rebuild the stone wall dividing their farms such each spring. This is a question of a normal speaker. The speaker is the poet himself, but then it is described in such a way that the man is getting confused why he and his neighbor has to every year mend the wall to keep it separated, and that too in the spring. It is perhaps best known for its line spoken by the neighbor, "Good fences make good neighbors." The poet's narrator displays a disdain for the expression and the wall erected between people, and yet he also shows a grudging acceptance of the line's truth in such application to human relationship. It is also true that the whole poem is very well known for this line, "Good friends make good neighbors," though it is universally accepted fact that the more far you keep with each other, the better cooperative you can be. But at the same time, it is not it is kind of harsh reality that this is true, but yet the poet is of a question why there on that land the stone wall is required. The conservative farmer says good fences make good neighbors, and the modern radical farmer says something there is that doesn't love a wall. The line is listed by the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations as a mid-17th century proverb which was given a boost in the American consciousness due to its prominence in the poem. This good friends make good neighbors, that is the conservative farmer's outlook, and at the same time the more radical farmer feels that there is something, he is very dubious, and that is why he says there is something that doesn't like a wall. Because of this, it was listed in the Oxford Dictionary of Quotations in this mid-17th as a proverb. And Frost deals poem with man in relationship with the universe. In Mending Wall, Frost juxtaposes the two opposite aspects of the theme of the poem, and they leaves it to be the reader to draw his own conclusion. It depends on the reader. He is not giving a conclusion. He is not giving a proper yes or no question. It is an open-ended space where the reader has to decide whether the walls are good or the walls are bad. Thus, with the open-ended question, we are just come to the ending of this poem's section. These are the few references what I have taken for this PPT. Now that's all. Thank you.
SANDHAN, All Gujarat Integrated Classroom.
સેટેલાઇટના માધ્યમથી જોડતી કડી એટલે સંધાન.